What I notice these days, if you're a coach, whether you're a health and fitness coach, a wealth coach, relationship coach, is it's too one-sided. Either you have on this side of the coin a coach where they're really good with like marketing, selling, delivering, running the business, or this side of the coin they're good at the delivery aspect and getting people results in their craft. Right? These days you need both sides of those coins. You have to be really good at the business side and you have to be good at your craft to get people results. So that's why in this interview we actually were on Mike T. Nelson's podcast and we talked about unlocking the secrets to effective coaching. Okay, we give literally all of our nuggets that we did from the past 8 years running dynamic duo training, how we coach people, exercise, nutrition, how to be a better coach, the business side of things. You guys are really going to enjoy this, so stay tuned for this one.
Welcome back to the Flex Diet Podcast. Thank you for listening. We're here today with Coach Eric and Coach Chris. Thank you guys for being on here. Really appreciate it.
Mike, thanks so much for having us. Really appreciate it. I know we've connected several times, have known each other for several years. So yeah, this should be fun to talk and jam out and just hopefully we deliver some great value to your audience.
Yeah, and by the time this goes out, we'll hopefully have seen you guys at the Raise the Bar event in Dallas. I think you'll be at, correct? I know you're in the Dallas area, obviously.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I was telling Jody, though, I'm going to actually be in California. So
bugger.
Yeah, you won't see me.
Vacation time?
Just going to see go see my mom and my older brother, visit them for a little bit.
Oh, nice. That's cool. Very cool. Awesome. Today we're talking about what is the difference between in-person and online training. So I think there's a trend by, Instagram and influencers or whatever word we use for people that hey, just do online training. You can sit around in your underwear, scratch your nuts all day and like just send clients stuff to do and they do it and you just rake in tons of money. And as we all know, that's just a complete fantasy and it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, exactly.
100%.
What were some of the differences for you guys when you started doing online training that you were sort of prepared for, but things you didn't quite expect?
Yeah, I'd say the biggest thing is just really knowing like who you're working with, right? Like your demographic. We tell like even our students right now where obviously if you're a local PT, which a lot of people love doing the hybrid model of in-person and online training, is you don't have this selective pool to really choose from locally because you're usually at a gym. It's a 3 to 5 mile radius, right? So you're going to work with an assortment of different people, whether they're moms, they're dads, and they're sedentary, and they have physical limitations, right? They have different biomechanic issues, right? But online, that's your opportunity where you could sit there and work with a different niche that you want because that's where your messaging gets targeted to people through your content creation. But I would say, Mike, like for us too and our students, the biggest thing is just that kind of carryover, right? Is if they're working with a beginner online, it's going to be hard because some of those beginners need to learn the fundamental movement patterns. You have a squat, a hip hinge, overhead press, all those type of things. And if they don't have those fundamental movement patterns, it's hard to have a really good online program for them to progress with progressive overload. So I'd say that's the biggest thing is like, you just have to know who you're working with online, especially because it's a little bit tough with beginners. So that's where the hybrid model is really nice, where it's like, if you have a setup of a beginner comes in for an 8 to 12 week kind of phase, learns the fundamental movement patterns, then you move them into an online program because they've mastered those kind of fundamentals. And then they can actually go into your online program.
Mm-hmm.
You agree?
I agree with Chris, and I wasn't even saying too. Yeah, I was waiting for Chris to just shut up. I'm just kidding.
Basically, right?
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. But no, I do agree with what Chris said. And for us too, it was a little bit different because if we take this back to 2008, 2009, everything was so different. Like, it was barely scratching the surface. There was no social media. So for us, we had to dominate our 3 to 5 mile radius. And we worked at a mom and pop's gym, saw a lot of clientele there. So we did really well with that. But then like once we started working with Lane Norton, we saw, oh man, like this is awesome. Like this is where this is where the puck is going to go in the future because it opened up so much doors for online. So like when we started, we 100% had to just dominate that 3 to 5 mile radius and then sit there and slowly transition online.
And what were some of the key points when you transitioned online? Both kind of were older people here back in the day versus how is it different now?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing now is like we just literally worked with everybody. which that could work to your advantage. And luckily we had some good breaks with that. But I think that nowadays you have to be a little bit more clear as to who you're working with, because there's such a huge, massive like lake and pool of people out there. There's a lot of coaches out there, and it's not to discourage like aspiring online coaches now, because there's a lot to go around. People buy coaches, they don't buy coaching. So I would say the biggest difference now is really identifying that avatar niche, like understand who your perfect future client is. What is their pain points? What is their wants? What is their desires? What's their needs? What is some of their false belief patterns? What is your specialty and methods? How do you solve the problem differently than other people? So I think that is like the biggest difference that I would see now, because in person, you can't really target people like that. And online, it's like you do have to have your content dialed in with your messaging.
Yeah, and I would say too, Mike, like I was waiting for him to shut up now. I got to give him the low blow.
It's like ping pong.
But he hit the nail right on the head on the marketing side of it too. But on the delivery side of it, of actually like giving the client an experience online, right? What's different now from back then is now they have the softwares, which make it a lot easier and more convenient. So to me, it's a double-edged sword though, too, in a way, because again, it's another software, it's another app somebody has to keep track of, has to open up on their phone while they're at the gym. They could get distracted. There's a lot of kind of cons to that as well too. But a trainer going into it now, again, they have those advantages because of the software to be able to sit there and input all those certain things. We had to use PDFs, Excel sheets, Google Docs, and there's nothing wrong with that too. We still tell our students, whatever makes it easier for you to run your business and deliver the program efficiently for them to follow and adhere to and get results, that's what all that matters, right? You can always invest in a fancy software and move all your training programs and stuff like that. But I would say that's like the biggest difference, I would say, in the past decade, is just the involvement of like technology to make things a little bit easier on the delivery side of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I probably waited maybe too long to switch from spreadsheets. I probably switched over 5 years ago, and oh God, switching was painful.
Mm-hmm.
But the issue I was having is that the spreadsheets were becoming so painful, I had to do something different, because I was trying to hyperlink to all the YouTube videos, and then you'd miss a character here or there, or they're trying to pull it up on some newfangled phone and the Excel wouldn't pull. So then you have to put it in a Google Doc, and then, I don't have Wi-Fi at the gym and it doesn't load. And so eventually I just caved in, but it was hard because it felt like starting over. Like I had a lot of the programs, and for me, it was a good opportunity to go back and actually look and go, man, why am I spending like 3 hours writing an Excel program? And what I realized was I took 2 days out of my schedule and just said, okay, I'm going to suck it up. I'm going to figure this out. And I'm going to go back and look at all the programs I did over the past 2 years. And when I did that, even with a wide variety of clients, I was like, oh, like the first 4 to 8 weeks are like 70% similar.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, crap. And after that, it would definitely diverge more depending upon what their goals are and what they were doing and what volume they could handle and everything else. But I was shocked because in my head, I was literally recreating each one from scratch, which was a waste of time. But the benefit of it was I realized that, when I went back and looked at them, there was a fair amount of commonalities. So I could do a few templated things and have an idea. And then you fast forward over 5 or 6 years, you're like, oh yeah, this person did novice strongman competition or whatever. There's stuff that's going to be key. So you can reuse different things here and there as you customize it.
Yeah, absolutely. We could relate with that too, but it's like just like anything else. It's just as things evolve, it's like you have to evolve with your business too and just change things up. You have to always constantly kind of like fine tune your systems and processes and delivery.
Yeah, and sometimes I realize I'm too much of an old school person because I still write everything down in my old training notebook.
Hey man, I do that too.
That's what I do. That's what we do.
And I still tell clients, yes, I'm sending your program digitally because if I just mailed you stuff in the mail, you would hate me. But I would still encourage you to write it down in your program, take it to the gym. Don't worry about leave your phone in your locker, for crying out loud. Anyway, that's a side note. I feel like some rambling old man now because I see people sitting on the pec deck I only go to a commercial gym once a week, so my life isn't hard. But they're always sitting on the pec deck, like typing stuff into their phone, resting for 5 minutes for I don't know why they're there, but anyway.
Yeah. I think it'd be amazing if like people could just leave their phones while they're just doing their workouts.
Yeah, even like online, like I think when you write something out by hand, there's something different about even understanding the program. Like I've hired coaches in the past where they send me all my stuff online, and I would still write it out by hand. And I think just the process of doing that, I understood the program a little bit better. And I do think there is something to almost like subconsciously preparing for what you want to do. If you've written out your thing for the week, I also realized I'm much more compliant because I don't want to draw a line and have this thing. I go back and look at my notebook that I missed that day. Where online, it just seems, no one will ever see it again. Or I think if I wrote it out, I feel like I have to, my compliance is much higher too.
Yeah. And we did that too. We would just go transfer it over like at the end of the week and spreadsheets and whatnot.
Yeah. But I was going to say too, this is like a good kind of piggyback on this subject too, because I think too, like the caveat too, with some of these like training softwares is too many people like use it as a crutch. So where they just take the programs that are already built in there. And it's like, they're just basically cookie cutter type of programs that has nothing to do with these individual needs and preferences and their lifestyle and stuff like that, that fits the individual. But I think that other, like even trainers that are listening to this should go back and even just exercise kind of like that skill of exercise programming on Excel sheets or even like Word docs, because there's something about that too, that just you're writing those things out on the Excel sheet or the PDFs, and it makes you think a lot and just see it on paper, what you're drawing out for the actual individual. And that's why we hired Eric Helms back in like 2015, because everything we were doing was off like Word docs, PDFs, but then we're like, man, we got to level up on this. But like the books aren't working enough. We actually need to hire somebody that's designing higher level programs and teach us exercise programming. And that's when we got into spreadsheets and just really upped our game with this program for online clients.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I even find that I've got another notebook here in front of me that if I'm doing like a new phase or there's stuff it doesn't feel quite right, I'll literally write out their whole program in a piece of paper, and I'll literally email the client and be like, hey, I'll have your program to you tomorrow. You don't start till Monday. You've got plenty of time. And I'll literally put it, so I look at it first thing in the morning. And I do this weird thing where I go to bed and I think about it, and I wake up in the morning and I look at it, and they'll either have this thought after you've been doing it long enough of, yep, that's good. Nope, change this, change that. Yeah. And you either know right away if it was good or not. Yeah. But I found where I didn't do that sometimes, if I'm not really sure, it would never fail that, oh, this exercise was horrible and this didn't work. And so I think there's something to that whole subconscious process of whatever process people do. Even if you're online, you don't necessarily have to do everything online. You can write it on paper. Yep. And as long as it's delivered in an online fashion at the end of the day, you're good to go.
Yeah. Yep.
Cool. I'm preaching to the choir here.
It's good though. Good conversation with that.
Yeah.
When you do programming, especially online, where do you start? Like I find I start with obviously their needs, their goals, all that kind of stuff, which is pretty the same. But the thing I wish someone would have told me years ago was then to start with whatever their constraints are. Is it time? Is it a certain amount of equipment, travel, whatever? So again, I'll write those in a whole separate area, and then I'll build it around that. Because I made this mistake years ago of doing programs that were way too long, or the biggest way, which I've screwed up in the past to look like an idiot, is, oh, do this kettlebell exercise. And they're like, I don't have kettlebells, you idiot. Oh, oops, sorry.
Yeah, exactly. I think a great place to start, that's a great question. I think a great place to start is obviously when you're onboarding a new client online, let's put this in the context of online, you should have an intake form where it's asking very detailed questions to gather all that data. From there, it's okay, like what is this person's resistance training history? What's their injury history? Like how much time do they have? Can you make sure they send you a squat, bench, and deadlift video so you could see like how their mobility is and what they need to work on? Then you can go from there. But again, are they training at a gym? Are they training at a home? What do they have access to? So you have to gather all that data first in order to make a really good, properly periodized like program, in my opinion. But again, too, a lot of people like I think they overthink it too much, because again, nowadays, like you want something that's realistic, enjoyable, and flexible. That's what Eric Helms would teach us, right? Is like make something that's realistic, enjoyable, and flexible that this person could adhere to for days, weeks, and years on end, right? They're not going to sit there and program hop, that they're bought into your philosophy and exercise training. So I think with those different variables, just focusing on that, man, that's a really good place to start.
Yeah, I would agree. And I would just say, Mike, like just a tip like that we learned the hard way was we would sit there, if we had a new client, we would sit there and program like 12 weeks, right, of a full entire program for them. That was a mistake, because if they were doing a payment plan, come month 2, they'd make some excuse up that they can't sit there and continue in the program. Well, they just got a whole entire 12-week program and they can go follow at the gym. You know what I mean? So that's what we teach our students now, is just program in 4-week kind of blocks, especially if they're like on a monthly payment plan, because that could happen. And there's just nothing you can do about it once you deliver that 12-week program. And then for some reason that month comes and they can't make the payment.
Yeah. One last thing I want to throw in there. It's a good tip is I think every online coach should have their own exercise library. I truly believe that
that's good.
Just go to a gym, block out 2 hours, film 30 to 50 exercises, 1-minute videos, like executing how to do that video. Because again, then you could use that to embed them into different softwares. And again, the client wants to see you executing those. They don't want some random like person off like a Trainerize app or whatnot. So to just take the extra time to do that.
Yeah. And that's one thing I found that is beneficial. I will confess sometimes with a basic exercise, I'll just grab some other video, but for most stuff, it's nice having a gym in my garage and I just go in there and tell them like, hey, I just leave them as unlisted in YouTube. I'm not doing anything else with them. And then it's nice too, because I've done it a few times where you can even custom do an exercise for them. So you could use their name and say, hey, Bob, I wanted to go in the gym and do this specific exercise for you. Caveat, make sure you don't send that to Cindy or somebody else. But, I found even just those short things that don't take a lot of time, especially with we're all walking around with cameras in our pocket and stuff now, kind of goes a long way to show them that you actually are listening to them and you are trying to provide them more of a customized solution also.
Yeah, 100%. And the biggest thing too, for coaches that are listening right now, a great acronym for you guys to just write down and just really buy into, it's HUV, HUV. Your guys' clients want to be heard, they want to be understood, and they want to be valued. That's really what they want.
Yeah, and that's something I wish someone would have told me earlier, because my assumption was, if I just deliver them the best program and the best nutrition and all this stuff, then everything will be great. And yeah, that's a basic requirement. And it was interesting, especially doing some exit interviews after I started. It was all the stuff that I didn't think they even listened to nor cared about. Right. It was like, I remember their dog's name. I told them, hey, get up in the morning and go walk Fluffy or whatever. It was like all these smaller things, or the fact that I would call people out on mindset stuff. I'm like, do you realize you just said this, or that? Oh, wow, I didn't realize that. So all those things, I think, because you said, at the end of the day, you're delivering them, it's online, but it's still, to me, it's an experience.
Exactly.
But if they want just program, if they want just run-of-the-mill nutrition, I mean, you can get that wherever now. Yeah. But I think making it custom to them and then also demonstrating that this is a living, breathing document. So if you go on vacation, we'll change it. If something happens or you can't bench press because your right pec hurts, then, we'll change it and modify it. And I think that's why online training is useful compared to just following a program.
Yeah, those are such great points, Mike. And I think too, you nailed it with it's an experience. That's what they're paying for too. And again, you have to deliver that experience. Like customer experience is pivotal. And that's the thing, like that's how you separate yourself from other coaches out there. When people say, it's so saturated, well, it's no, just go above and beyond and just take a general interest in each client. Like you said, get to know their names, get to know their family, their dogs, their interests. You're building a relationship. This is a relationship business. And I think too many coaches just miss that. And again, too, it's not really taught in certifications. That's the problem too. It's like everything's very just like textbook outdated towards, okay, you're competent in like nutrition and exercise science and all this stuff, but it's then what do you go do after this? Like, how do you go build a business out of this? How do you go and really become a great coach? How do you challenge people's thinking patterns?
How do you do that? Like that's something I've been still working on. It always feels like a work in progress. I think there's a fine line between you want to be encouraging, but yet you don't want to agree with everything they say. If their deadlift looks like a pooping dog, you don't want to be like, great deadlift, Bob. No, your deadlift sucked. Like, how do you go about providing constructive criticism?
Yeah, I think it's just really dose dependent on like the client. That's why it's important to you just understand like the personality of the client. Are they the type of person where it's like they're going to get easily offended? Are they the type of relationship where it's like you can joke around with them, you can give them the hard truth, or you can come down on them? So I think it's important, number one, knowing like the personality, and then number two, just the relationship you have with each of these like clients. Like, how is it building upon like the weeks, the months, to where it's like you can actually give them honest, like constructive, like criticism or feedback within like an exercise pattern, or call them out on their shit if they're not following like their macros or something like that,
Yeah, I think too, it's like, why would you want clients like that too, though? That are going to get offended if it's like you are the coach, like they're paying you, like lead them, give them constructive criticism, make them better. So you got to question that too. But I get what Chris is saying, where it's, yeah, you do have to identify, is this person, what's their personality like? Are they having a bad day, a bad week? People get easily offended nowadays.
Yeah. And I would say too, Mike, one thing too is like in your like accountability check-in process, we used to do it just by like monthly calls, right? So at least 2 calls like per month in there, because it didn't matter if they sent in like their subjective and their objective like feedback through like email, and then we would get back to them on a video, because sometimes they would misreport, sometimes they would lie. And really it was like an underlying like personal issue they were dealing with personally that made them not want to go into the gym or not want to be adherent to like their nutrition program. And the only way we got that out of them was jumping on like a 10-minute call with them and literally like just shooting the shit with them. Like, hey, what's up? Like, you haven't been consistent. You haven't been adherent. You've been MIA. Like, what is going on? That type of conversation with people.
Yeah. Good point.
Yeah. I think that's super useful. And I have a thought about assessments on that. And a buddy of mine recently who's very much admitted to be on the autistic spectrum. So he's very literal with stuff. He just started training people again a little bit online. And he's, you know what I just figured out? He's, some people just want to pay to be my friend. He's like, I never thought that was a thing. I thought everyone only wanted my advice for everything. He's like, what I've realized is there's a percentage of people who just want to pay to talk to me. And he's like, true. And I'm okay with that, but I just realized this now. Which I thought was,
I believe it.
So funny. Because you do run into those people every now and then. And you realize that it's like bringing the horse to water. You can do everything you can, but you got to go to the gym. You got to do some of the stuff. And I was doing an in-person seminar here a couple of years ago, and one of our good friends was here, and she's, oh, if I fill this out online, like in True Coach, like how do you provide feedback to people? Like we were talking about assessments and stuff. And I looked at her and I said, for you, you would leave a comment there that would not be urgent, and I would not answer it for 4 days. And she just looked like horrified. She's like, what? I'm like, because you want to impress me all the time. And I want you to do better just for the sake of you doing better. So if I delay my comments because they're not urgent either way, then you remove that, oh, I just want the high five. I want my coach to agree with everything. And at first she was like horrified. And then she's, oh yeah, I get it. That kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
But it's hard to figure out what each person needs too, because some other people, there's no way I could do that. They'd be like, oh my God, this is horrible. Yeah. So I just think it's a lot of, like you guys said, experience and figuring out what type of feedback that particular person needs in that point in time too.
Yeah, it could also be too, like on the onboarding process where you get a new client, usually like you have a PDF or something like that has the communication, the boundaries, like what the accountability calls look like, all these different things. I think you just set the tone there to where it's just like, these are like the zero like tolerance things that you'll put up with. And these are like the restrictions, the boundaries. And I think if you do that, you're just setting the tone there in the very beginning that this is like a tight ship that we're running, that like, I'm not here to be like your best friend. I'm your coach. You're paying me good money to get you a result and to solve a problem.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think too, at the end of the day, it's like you have to understand that just you can't help everyone. You're not going to be able to help everyone, and not everyone is going to meet you halfway and put in the work. They're just not. So as long as you can live with that, as long as as a coach that you did everything with integrity, you did everything with an ethical manner, you showed up, that's really all you can do. Because we're going to have those clients where every excuse in the book, and you're just like, I can't help this person. I just can't help this person.
Yeah, I'll come back to that too. But related to boundaries, you mentioned, again, something I wish someone would have pulled me to the curb and been like, hey, man, like you should probably have some clear boundaries and don't give out your cell phone to every single client right away. You should probably interview people at first. That was a big mistake I didn't do. I'll train with you. Great. Here's your buddy. Sign up. I'm like, oh my God, this is such a disaster. What am I doing? What kind of boundaries do you see are useful, and what are ones that are not useful? And I know it's like highly dependent per person and their style and what they're doing.
Yeah, I would say definitely. I like the whole idea of giving out your cell phone number. Like the way we teach it is having like a very high premium package. And if you sell that high premium package, I think that the client should get your cell phone number. But with the boundaries of, hey, you can't just blow up my phone all day with questions. I answer questions only from 10 to maybe 12 or something like that. After 5 or 6 o'clock, I have family time and I'm not going to get back to it. I don't get back to text messages on Sunday because that's the time that I spend with my family or something like that. Those type of boundaries I've seen that like really works. And you can do the same thing like with email as well too.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'm trying to think of anything else that really stands out in the context of like boundaries and communication. I think it's just, again, just putting it into a system and just being really clear and thorough as to what your check-in process is, like how you can ask questions. And again, just don't use me like Google. Ask like good. I don't like saying that because there's no such thing as like there's stupid questions, but it's
there's
like,
stupid questions.
Yeah, there is. Yeah. So I caught myself. I caught myself on that, but yeah, I think that's really it that stands out to me.
Yeah. Again, one of my biggest mistakes I made early on was I'm like, yeah, any questions you have, just text my phone. Because my thought was if I over deliver like everyone else, I'm going to provide this amazing value. And I remember having, oh my God, like, this is years and years and years ago. A client texted me pictures of fish oil from Target. And she texted me like 4 different ones. She's like, oh, this one or that one or this one. And of course, the pictures don't turn out right. It's just not even sending me like the friggin' fax panel. It's just the brand name. And so I'm like, well, how much EPA and DHA is in that? What's EPA? I don't know. Okay, send me the nutrition panel. I can't find the nutrition panel. Turn the bottle around. I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing? I hate my life. This is horrible. And then the ironic part of that whole thing was, even after all of that, she was still so confused. She leaves Target and doesn't buy a single one. So I'm like, okay, so I just lost an hour of my life and she didn't even buy anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, and something like that too, I was going to say is just like, she was lucky that you were just like super responsive like that. Like just the timing of it, think about it. She's at Target. And if I didn't get back to her, she would have gotten probably pissed off or something like that at you. And that's entitlement because you shouldn't sit there and just be like waiting on your phone like this, waiting for her to send you pictures of fish oils. So if that would have been like a boundary, she would have understood it. And the same thing too, we tell our students, don't let your clients message you like on Facebook or Instagram. That should be solely for your lead generation. Again, have a system where it's email, whether it's like an audio thing like WhatsApp or what's the other one called? Voxer. Or if they have your phone number, keep it very clean and neat and organized.
Mm-hmm.
All right, just give me 1 second. We'll get back to the training. Okay. Now, look, if you are looking to enhance your content, if you're looking to really build what we call a content machine, okay, we have this awesome worksheet for you. So just check out the link below and you guys can download this awesome worksheet where there's like 3 or 4 different type of like exercises in there. You guys can really roll out some brand new content for your guys' online audience, your guys' brand, your offer. Okay. Now back to the training.
Yeah, that's one thing I've gotten better at too is for me, it's just email me. I actually literally have a dedicated email. It's an email address that's literally only for clients. Nobody else gets it because I realized if I was traveling, I could go in that email. I could get back to people who I had agreed a time response to. And it was just less likely to get lost. Unfortunately, it's email, so stuff still gets lost once in a while. And the other part too is like you talked about boundaries with times. So for me, for email, I tell people it's 24 to 48 hours. Because again, same mistake I had with the texting thing. Early on, I thought, oh man, if I get back to their email right away. And what I realized was all I got was a laundry list of stupid questions.
Mm-hmm.
And I let clients like drag me into God knows what. Like you'd start talking about fish oil and it would be 15 emails later and they're asking about the right ankle and they don't know what's going on with it. And it's, did you have any? No, I don't have any pain in it. I can squat fine. It's like, why are we having this conversation? And you realize that some people just, it's almost like they wanted your attention because they thought you're just like the Google encyclopedia.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I followed up with them about their program, I noticed that the more weird oddball questions they asked, almost all those people were very not compliant. And I'm going, what am I doing? So I'm actually allowing them to let them go off the path. They think they're getting some value from it. But I know in a couple of months, when they don't reach their goals, they're going to be pissed. And I'm going to be like, hey, like you did 10% of your training. I don't know what to tell you. So, yeah, I realize now if someone I probably shouldn't say this on a podcast, whatever. If a client sends me an email and I write back to it, if they write another question that's not urgent, it doesn't affect their training the next day, it doesn't affect anything, I actually won't answer it usually till the next day.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to get sucked down that whole path of 7 different email questions later and you're talking about something completely different. And what I realized was there's no value added to it either. They weren't getting better results. This is, a good buddy of mine says, this is fitness. There are no emergencies in fitness. You're not an ER doc. You're not something that it absolutely has to have an answer like right now. Like most things can wait a period of time and everyone's going to be just fine.
That's
exactly. And it's like you're busy. It's like you can't be constrained to clients' questions and all that. And I think another way to solve that issue too for coaches too, depending on what their delivery model is or how they hold their accountability and accessibility. If you don't want to give out your phone number and this and that, you could create. That's why you can create a Facebook group. You can create a WhatsApp group, a Slack group, or you can host group coaching calls for Q&A once per week to get all your clients on and just ask questions. So then you're answering common questions.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to tell just one quick story, Mike, about the whole thing with boundaries. It's funny. Like when we started working with Lane, I think it was 2009, I was just like so hungry for knowledge. And I was just asking him questions left and right through email. And I think he was on his honeymoon and he just literally got fed up and he wrote back, dude, he's like, he said, stop asking so many questions. I'm on my honeymoon. And I had to let that marinate because I was like, man, I was being very selfish and entitled because I hired him as a coach and he didn't set the boundaries. But it's when you put yourself in those people's shoes, it's not okay. You know what I mean? So we got to get those boundaries in place and the communication, straightforward.
Yeah. I have a whole document now from a client I had in the past who we'll say didn't work out. And I call it my nuclear approach to boundaries. And because I got fed up one day and I literally wrote like a 5-page document out and I sent it to her. Obviously we didn't work together after that. I said, here's the deal. You follow this, we're cool. You don't follow it, you're out. I'll give you all your money back. I'm not dealing with you anymore. But it was literally everything from, I'm not your psychologist. I'm not your physical therapist. I'll help you with movement. Here's the times I'm around. Here's my expectation for email. Yes, you have my private cell phone number. Here's when I'll actually answer it. Here's a question that's appropriate to send to the cell phone number. Hey, dumbass, my training is not in there tomorrow. Totally appropriate to send to my cell phone, right? Because I screwed up. To ask about fish oil again, not a good idea, right? But most people you find, like especially going back to the interview process. So now when I have a longer interview, I think you can usually tell which people are going to be better and which people are not. So literally at the end of a call I have with people, like I just tell them, this is as much as me evaluating you as you are evaluating me, because we're going to work pretty close together. And literally at the end of the call, the only thought I think of is, can I help this person? And 2, do I really want to talk to him again?
Yeah.
And if I can help them and they're going to pay me money and I don't want anything to do with them, I'm like, nope, we're good. This is not going to work out.
Yeah. And really quick, that's a great, this is a great teaching point for again, coaches, right? Is what you said, this person probably might be a headache just after talking to them. So this is why we encourage like our coaches in our program to do what's called 15-minute discovery calls, where all you're doing is going off a questionnaire that you have them fill out, you're qualifying them and you're building trust. That's all you're doing. And from there, you make the decision whether you want to advance them onto another strategy call or a call to pitch your services. But I don't think enough people do that because again, you can get a good feel for someone in 15 minutes. If they're crazy, they're not going to adhere and they're going to be a bad apple to maybe your community.
Yeah. And I think even then realizing that there's some people you might be able to help, but you don't want to help. And it's okay that you don't want to help them. Because I think early on I felt, I have the skill set. They really need help. And like all those people I was on the fence about, like generally didn't work out too well. And it's kind of almost the 80-20 principle in reverse, right? You'll spend 80% of your time working with 1 or 2 clients. And I'm okay with spending more time with people who need help. Totally cool. I have no issue with that. As long as I feel like they're getting a benefit from it and things are moving forward. But when you're having all these weird off-topic discussions that are just derailing everything, again, you're spending a whole bunch of time and they're getting a worse result from it.
Yeah. So you should have listened to your gut.
Yeah. I made the same mistake with offering discounts too.
Oh yeah.
I remember emailing Lane years ago and I said, hey man, I said, do you offer any discounts or anything? I said, I'm just asking from a business standpoint because I realized the last 2 times I did this is probably like a decade ago, like both those people were a pain in the ass, and one of them refunded. He's, oh, you're paying the stupid tax. I'm like, yeah, that's a good way of thinking about it.
Yeah. We learned the hard way with that too, because you're going to have those people that are going to wait every year just for you to offer that discount, whether it's once a year, twice a year. And I'm just very big on that mentality where it's like, if you don't pay, if people that pay attention, people that pay more attention. If they're looking for the discounts, then they're probably not going to end up being like a good client.
Yeah, and that's why we always say don't put your prices on your websites. If you have a website, don't, because people are just window shopping and they have absolutely zero clue as to what the value is and how you're actually going to help them.
Yeah. What about this? I did the reverse, actually, which to me is a good idea or bad idea. Since technically I have a wait list, it's been like a year and a half. I do have some clients that come in and go out, but it's usually just a referral, or it's one person here or there. I actually put on the website that I have a wait list, and I actually listed the prices. My thought being, I have the luxury right now. I don't have to take a lot of people per se, because I have other projects and clients are still with me. And what I realized was, for the reason you actually mentioned, it gets rid of almost all the tire kickers.
Sure.
Before, when I put, hey, I've only got 3 openings, fill out this application, it was a fair amount of work to qualify a lot of the applications and ask questions back. And it was just more kind of monkey motion, where now I know if someone actually filled out the application, they have some good information, Jody will generally schedule a call. And I know that they already know what the price is. It's still a price range, so they don't know exactly what it is. And I found that tends to work actually much better, probably for the same psychology that you're mentioning.
Yeah, and I would say absolutely for you, Mike, because you have built up, you've established an awesome brand, a trustworthy brand, and you're an authority figure. You have 10 plus years of experience, probably more. You have social proof. So you rightfully so should be doing that to avoid and protecting your time from people that are serious. So yeah, if someone's in your position, yes, but if someone's new or something, then
totally agree.
I would not do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think you want to get information about them. And what I even told people too is just get practice interviewing people. Like, you're just starting. Man, I lost so many freaking 1-hour calls because I was a dumbass. Like, my whole thing was, I'm like, oh, it's a 1-hour call. I'll see if we were. And I remember this one client eons ago. I walked her through everything she needed to do. The call ended up being an hour and a half. And we got to the end and she's, no, I'm good. I'm thinking, what? I just demonstrated all this value to, I solved all your issues. And she's, no, I know what to do now. I went, oh shit. I know she's not going to do any of it, but in her mind, she solved all the issues that she had. So I was like, oh, whoops, that wasn't a good thing.
Yeah.
And that's funny. That's something we teach actually to our students, right? There's 3 different phases when you're doing actually like that sales call with somebody, right? And a lot of coaches make this mistake where it's like they could be the person where it's like more of a friend, right, on that call. So they're shooting the shit with them. They're joking too much. They're just like, they're not showing that they're like an authority to them. So people don't take them that serious. The other side of that coin is somebody that's done too much. So they're giving them all the answers. So from there, what do you think somebody's going to do after the call? Oh, I got enough stuff here, so I'm going to go try it on my own, because they only know what they know. Then you have the other one where it's like the closer, the hardcore closer. They're just being super like aggressive, just very like a lot of pressure on like the sales call. But you want to be the person that's the auditioner. You have a blend of a little bit of it all, and like you're there to coach them up, and you set the boundaries again, that you're there to help them out and solve the problems.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think there is something to just the psychology of, you're okay losing a sale if it's not a good fit, which
100%
biased opinion is a real thing, because I don't want to work with the people that are a pain in the ass. Even when I started, if I were to start over from absolutely nothing now, man, I would wait as long as possible not to work with people that are a pain in the ass, because so I do think there is almost a beneficial psychology to that of, hey, I may turn you down and I don't think you're a correct fit. They're like, what? You're turning down my money? I'm like, I don't want to work with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's usually kind of, oh, I remember a call I did 6 years ago. And so again, this might not be the best idea, but what I do with someone who I don't think is going to follow anything that I say, I just literally spend the whole call telling them, I don't think you're going to do anything that I tell you. Here's an example. And I'll be like, hey, if I tell you to do this, we're going to, okay, explain to me how you would do that. And so I did this with one lady for 40 minutes, and I was just utterly convinced she's not going to do anything. And to her credit, she's like, oh, I would do this and I would do that. And I said, okay, here's the deal. I will take you on as a client, but it's a trial basis. At any point, I can fire you. At any point, you can fire me. And if you don't hit 90% compliance after the first 4 weeks, then you're automatically done. She's like, okay. And she ended up being a great client. But I think if I wouldn't have done that and would have been like, oh, we'll help you, whatever, it would have been just a complete disaster.
Yeah. That's
100%.
funny though. That's funny that you just did that experiment and she took, it's obviously she took it well. So that's cool. And yeah, I just think too, like it's coaches should look at themselves and have that type of attitude towards it's a privilege to work with me. I think that just like you said, too many people just take on whoever, and I get it. We're all like coming from like a servant mentality and we want to genuinely help people. But again, sometimes is it worth it?
Yeah. I think also too, just like on the sales side of it too, just a lot of like health and fitness coaches, I think it's one of the reasons why they don't like sales or their resistance to it is because they think that every call that they have, like they have to absolutely make that close and take these and get these people on to serve them. And if they were to go into the actual call, which is a mentality of I'm here to inspire them to take action and to make a decision, an informed decision. And the only way they can make an informed decision is to be able to be in your program, to see what it's like, to be able to get results. So if you reframe your mindset that way, instead of thinking like, man, I have to go into this sales call and close them. I don't care if they're a good fit or bad fit. I just want the money. I just want them in the program. I think like your success for the sales call is gonna be a lot better.
Yeah. I think there's something about almost subconsciously appearing needy. No one really wants to work with that person, even if it is your thing and you're just sort of starting out. I think it's and I get it. It's a hard balance because you're like, man, I don't even have a single client. Why would I turn anyone down?
Yeah, exactly.
I know. I've been there. I get it.
Yeah, exactly. Same here.
What do you guys do for? We talked about assessments. Like, what do you do for assessments online? Because you had mentioned, and I found this out too, that some clients just generally tell you what you want to hear until all the shit hits the fan. And then it's like, oh, this and that. And it's like this outpouring of like how horrible everything has been going. I found using heart rate variability. So I have a marker of their physiologic stress, and they've got little indicators they have to fill out each day. And what I've noticed with that is, I can monitor their physiologic stress. But for me, that enables me to have more specific conversations. So I can look and be like, hey, last Tuesday and Thursday, it looks like you were super stressed, but you reported sleep, energy, and everything else was fine. Like, what happened that day? So it's almost like I've sort of called them out that I know something happened. Like, something happened. What was it? And then they're like, oh, yeah, I got in an argument with my spouse on that day. And my training, I didn't make it to the gym because of it. And I've just noticed that because I can pinpoint what's going on, that kind of allows me to have more in-depth conversations as compared to, hey, is there anything going on? Nope, I'm good. All good. You sure you're good? Yep. Oh, I'm good. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say what worked well for us is we had a subjective and then an objective data form. So we had a spreadsheet created to where it's like they literally would take, whether they're using like my Fitness Pal or my Macros Plus, they would transfer that information over onto the spreadsheet. So they'd have their daily weigh-ins there, and then they would have like their daily total macronutrients, protein, carbs, and fats. It populated all on a 7-day average with their weigh-ins and the macronutrients. So that would help us with the objective side of things to be like, okay, are they actually staying within a plus or minus 5 to 10 gram range of their macros? What are the trends on their weights? Is it fluctuating up or down based on the calories? And then they would have a subjective data where they could type it in or give us an audio of just like how stress levels, how's like your mindset, how's sleep, how's water intake, all these different types of things. And we would just really formulate like a really good decision on what we should do based off of all that information.
Yeah. Yep.
I like that.
Yeah.
And with their do you have people do specific check-ins? Do you have them do once a week? Like, how do you generally format that? Because I don't know, it just seems like there's opinions across the board.
Yeah, honestly, like what we used to do was like once a week check-ins, but then you would find too that a lot of them wouldn't need that. So they would just go into just doing 2 check-ins per month. And again, it really just all depends on like how much a coach wants to just like have that person just check in with them in the accountability aspect. But I think once per week is fine. I think that 2 times a month is fine. And as long as they're following and they're adhering to the plan, then I think that's just whatever you want to do with that.
Yeah. I always thought like pictures and like anthropometric measurements were overkill like weekly. So those we'd actually be able to see better results if we like kept track of those like monthly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I generally do check-ins weekly, and I leave it up to the client. I'm like, hey, I'll pull all your metrics on Monday because some people are doing HRV and Aura and Garmin and, got Chronometer and all that stuff. And then you send me your update by Sunday night. I'll get back to you most of the time by Tuesday. Sometimes schedule gets a little bit crazy and it gets weird. And I just leave it to them. Like, you tell me what's going on as much as you want. And I've got some clients that write 3 sentences and I've got some that write 7 paragraphs. But the ones who write more, it's generally useful information, right? Because I feel like you're the one who knows best about what it is to communicate. And then the more information I have generally is going to be more useful too. But it was fascinating to me when I did that, how variable it was. And it wasn't like people who wrote more got better results or people who wrote less got better results either. It wasn't either way. I think it's just a personal thing about how much they feel like they need to communicate per se.
Yeah, definitely. And that's why I think too, like it's great to offer like a once per month call, whether it's a phone call, Zoom call, whatever you want to do. But again, I think people really respect that, and they pretty much lower down their trust barriers with you when you do that, because again, then you can talk a little bit about like personal stuff, get to know them a little bit more, and again, it just builds a better relationship with that client towards. Then they can be like, okay, yeah, Coach Mike, I feel better telling you, hey, like I just blew it, I bombed it on the weekend, like this happened, I went through a breakup, maybe something financially went wrong, something with family issues. They're more likely to just really open up about those things, and then you're like, okay. Now it's like now I know why they're not adhering.
Yeah. Or maybe that first month, they're just like, you program them like 5 days a week or something like that. And they're just like straight up, Mike, I can't do that with my schedule. I need something that's 3 days a week and these specific kind of like days and stuff like that. So it just gives you better feedback and a relationship to build that next like program for them to keep getting them results.
Yeah.
How do you do that when they start? Because sometimes I feel like it's the catch-22, because I end up doing their lifestyle, their HRV, maybe if they have some blood work that needs looked at, blah, 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 like a bunch of stuff. And I want to give them all the information that they need, that they feel like they paid for. But yet I also know it's impossible for most people to be 100% compliant on everything out of the gate. So I try to tell them like, okay, here's what we have. Yes, we're just going to do this component of nutrition. Here's your training. How do you kind of ride that line between giving them all the information? Because in the past, what I used to do is not give them nearly enough information. And some people were kind of like, oh, I paid for all this stuff, I don't have it. But if I overload 800 things on them, there's no way they're getting all of them done either. So any thoughts on how do you find that right balance of, okay, here's the stuff that we definitely need you to do, but here's the progression of how I want you to follow it?
Yeah, I would say what works good too is like a 20-minute kickoff call when you have like a new client, because most of the students that we have or coaches, they're doing one-to-one coaching. And I think that it's a really good kind of trade-off to be able to do like a 20-minute kickoff call to build that like trust, to have buyer's remorse go away, right? And again, you're just getting more data on them and building that relationship with them to be like, hey, you made the right decision. Hey, you could trust me. I'm like your coach. I have my best intentions for you and your results. So I think that's a great time where it's like, you've already formulated their plan. You can go over it with them, right? Make sure that they have any questions that are just unanswered, any concerns, right, about how the process works, how your coaching style is. And I think that just puts them at ease, to be honest. And I think it puts you at ease too as a coach, because you could actually have all those little data points and write it down in your spreadsheet to anticipate any type of like roadblocks, like when you have updates with them, be like, okay, I have a hunch that this person, they might be a little MIA, or you know what, they might be like a little bit unadherent on certain things, but you at least have that data to anticipate going forward.
Yeah. And I think just to add to that too, it's as a coach, you should be just setting small milestones. People love milestones because then again, it builds up confidence. It builds confidence and then momentum. Once they have the confidence and momentum, it's game over. Then it's like they believe in themselves. There's certainty there to where they can continue to just build off of that. So milestones are great. And it could just be on your weekly check-ins. You could be like, hey, Jack, I need you to at least weigh in 5 out of 7 days for me fasted first thing. I need you to at least hit your macros for within a plus 10 minus gram range. I need you to at least get 2 cardio sessions. I need you to at least get 10,000 steps. So they're little milestones towards they start compounding and they're stacking these wins and building that momentum. So that's also a great way too.
Yeah, I think of that. I right now I'm just doing audio notes back to people just purely due to time reasons. Yeah. And I also try to convey what I call like the commander's intent of the program. It's okay, higher priority stuff is earlier in the week. Like higher priority exercises are A's over B's over C's. If you run out of time, for God's sake, don't compress your rest periods to 10 seconds. Like rest, make sure your high quality stays, that kind of stuff too. And I think that's been, but it's hard because I know there's some people who are very perfectionistic who see everything written out and they like just have to do it, or they feel like they're not getting the value from the program. And so sometimes it's hard for me to tell them, like, the value is that we can change this to your lifestyle. The value is not just you can complete everything. Yes, that's nice. That's part of it. But yeah, I'm still working on that balance.
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
In relation to some mechanic stuff, do you guys offer like a minimum? Like do you have them sign a contract? Do you allow them to get out of a contract if they're like, hey man, my basement flooded, I'm out? What do you do? Because I know that's and this still happens to me, to be honest, like from a financial standpoint, because I realized as I started doing this, I'm like, oh man, like I feel much better stress-wise if I have a lower income, but it's consistent. If my income is even higher, like my gross could be quite a bit higher, but if it's volatile, that stresses me out.
Yep, exactly. Same here with us. But yeah, I think that's why we stress having an agreement form set in place with all the expectations, all the communication. This is like the exact date you're going to get billed, reoccurring. And yeah, I just think that's about having honor, right? Whether that's you first selling like a 12 week program, or it could be a 6-month program, but it's about honor and just committing to that program. And I get it. It's hard. That's why too, we tell a lot of our coaches, try to get the payment in full, because you just never know what's going to happen in life to these clients, like adversity wise, and they might not be able to honestly make the payments. So it just puts you in a sticky situation. So that's the downfall, obviously, of a service-based business and coaching businesses, but just do the best you can to have it all written up in writing, have them sign it before sending any type of like program over, just so you have it all written up. And again, you could go the extra distance too of just having a business where it's maybe like a collections type of like agency, where just to cover your butt and just to show them like, hey, like business, like I'm a serious business owner. Please don't sit there and take me for granted and come up with saying these BS excuses that I can't make this payment.
Yeah. And one more tactic is in the agreement form, if like they do break it, like midway or something like that, they pay just a fee to get out of it or something like that. It's just the honor of it and having it in writing, like Eric said.
Mm-hmm.
If someone paid in cash up front, which I 100% agree with, would you allow them a refund, or what do you do in that case? Because I know fitness is such a weird area, because it's still unfortunately at the point where people don't treat it like a real profession. And this is fitness professionals don't treat it like a real profession. I'm not talking about even the general public. Would you allow them a refund, or how would you work that? I'm always curious. And I don't think there's a right or wrong to any answer here either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what I would do if they bought like a 12-week program for $2,000 or something like that, and 4 weeks in that they just couldn't continue it because of a death in the family or something like that, I would let them come back and honor like that next 8 weeks for them. So long as it's not like a year later or something like that. I would definitely figure out, is it like a 2-month thing, a 3-month thing? And I would honor that though, if they definitely paid in full and if they were like adherent those first 4 weeks.
Yeah, but I think the biggest thing too, a lot of coaches, they don't put in place what's called a risk removal or guarantee in their program. So if you do that, let's say, for example, like you're offering a 12-week program and you're guaranteeing them an outcome of, okay, I'm going to help you lose 20 pounds in 12 weeks. Great outcome. And realistically, people only know what they know. They're not going to be like, oh, hey, Coach Mike, like I did not lose 20 pounds, so give me my money back, because they're going to have so many different changes that they're going to thank you for. And it's a transformation. So you could say in your risk removal and guarantee, hey, if I don't get you these specific results in 12 weeks, I will continue to work with you for free. And it covers your butt. It saves any type of weird relationship where they're going to ask for money back and have a bad vibe. So I think that's a great way to avoid that.
Yeah. And so it mitigates the risk and just 100% reward on their end because of the investment. They can't really lose out of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've had very few people like cancel on contracts, but it does happen here and there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think everyone at some point just has to decide, okay, as a business, what am I going to do? It's like you either try to get people to honor things, or you just be like, it sucks and I'll take it in the shorts and figure it out with the next person. But I've been doing this for quite a while, and with the paid in full, I've never had anyone ask for a refund until literally yesterday. No idea why, don't know why. And so I'm just like, oh man, because it's one, trying to generate that much cash to refund back sometimes can be an issue. There can be a delay. It's if you don't have it in an account, you get a transfer to another account, assuming you have it. And then it just comes back down to, am I either going to go after this person and enforce some type of contract, which probably is not going to end well for either person?
Yep.
Or do I just go, it sucks, it's only happened once in 12 years. I'll just give them the refund, make sure they're happy and not worry about it and just go forward. But it still sucks even after you've been doing it for a long time to have it happen. And you're just like, oh man.
Yeah. It comes with the territory, unfortunately.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you guys for all your time here. And the last question, 2-part question. Do you think someone should have to train people in person before they do online training?
That's a good one. I'll let you tackle that first, big brother.
You want me to do it, huh? First off, Mike, thank you so much for having us, man. This has been
So
really
I
appreciate you.
I appreciate all your time and let me just grill you with all my questions.
This is an interesting question. I'm gonna say no, that you don't have to train in person, just because, again, like, I'm a big fan of imperfect action. I really am. I think that if you're competent and you can just do self-education and you take the proper precautions and you have a good heart, you have integrity, and you're willing to learn, get better, I think that just go for it, because there's no such thing as perfection. I think most people focus on putting out their A+ work when you should be putting out your B+ work. And again, action cures fear to where you just do it and just see what happens and just get better at it. Because again, I get it. You could say you should be an in-person coach and learn all the fundamentals and this and that. And I get it. Like, I'm not against it, but I'm going to go the other route and just say, you don't have to do that.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
That easy.
No other comments?
I would say I would agree with it, but I would also say that it's not going to hurt though too, because it's just, if you do in-person training too, I feel like it's going to make you definitely a better online coach, like all well-rounded, just because you're working with people in person, you're seeing them actually do the movement, and you're going to be better at programming and just a better overall coach with it.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't know. Depending on the day of the week, I go back and forth on this, but I guess I'm even just old and crotchety and feel like you need some experience in person, because I just don't think you can figure out how bad people can screw up exercise until you've actually had to coach them out of it. It's like, maybe if you're doing nutrition only, and I'm biased because I tell a nutrition certification, maybe I think some of those things you can definitely do online. I don't think it's as critical, but I think there is something very critical about seeing people move and being able to fix it in the moment. And I think if nothing else, having at least some vocabulary of movement you can pull from, because I started doing online training in 2006 and I had not even worked in person at that point. It was a trash bin fire. It was horrible. I apologize to any clients I took on at that point. It was a shit show. And after a year, I just quit, because I'm just like, I don't know what the F I'm doing. This is not good. And so I ended up getting some more in-person experience, and I wrote down a list. I said, okay, I'm not doing online training unless I have an assessment of their stress level. I can see their movement. I had this whole laundry list of assessments I wanted to do. Luckily, heart rate variability became available via phones and a bunch of other stuff, so it worked out.
Yeah.
But I'm a little old school in that matter.
Yeah. It's a tough one. It's a tough one.
Yeah. And I see both points of view, right?
Yeah.
Because there's some people who are new into the industry who are not going to spend a lot of time doing in person and may not be an advantage. And so, yeah, I get it.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Last super quick question as we wrap up. For nutrition stuff, my bias is everyone should do some type of nutrition online. Even if you're an in-person gym atmosphere, I think you can easily transition your nutrition. Most of your clients are there for body comp reasons. If nothing else, you should be doing that online. What are your thoughts?
I think they like nutrition probably like outpowers like online training, to be honest, because with the nutrition, like what you said, that's mostly a lot of people's pain points within that, right? Is losing weight. And that comes a lot with like their diet. That's not to say that exercise is not important, but for the majority of the time it is. And with that kind of skill and that competence of nutrition coaching, you could go partner up with local gyms and local businesses and do seminars. And most of the times you can't do that, which is like a knowledge of exercise programming. So it just makes you really multifaceted with that skill set to be able to sit there and solve bigger problems and then be able to monetize those skills.
Yeah, 100% agree with Chris on that. And I think too, if you're going to go down that route to help people with nutrition, like you should like have at the base level a certificate in nutrition, and probably a higher level of education.
Yeah, and I think there's a big market if someone wants to do that. You could literally go to local gyms and go to their trainers and be like, hey man, if you allow me to do nutrition with some of your clients, assuming they know and trust you, and you can show you're legit, and you could pay them a certain percentage or whatever,
Yeah.
you could get clients like so fast, because I notice a lot of trainers in person, if they said, hey, you can work at our gym, you can train people all day and you never have to talk about nutrition, like most trainers would be like, yes, my life is amazing.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a subset, but there's the people who want to do that, which I think can do it online and it can work quite well.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great point though on that. Yeah. Just going to personal trainers and just teaming up with them. That's good.
Yeah. I'll tell you just a quick story too. We have a student in Vegas. She got her MS in nutrition, and basically she went to Lifetime Fitness. I don't know if you have those around there in Minnesota, but
I go to one down the road.
Yeah. So very big ones, right? Like they're affluent type of gyms. And she got that position because she had the MS in nutrition, and all the other trainers there don't have any type of nutrition certification. So she gets to sit there and get all of like the consultations. She gets to do seminars. She gets to do challenges. And it's because she has that skill set.
Yeah. And that's definitely becoming a more valued skill set, I think, too.
100%.
Oh yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you guys so much for all your time today. I really appreciate it. So where can they find more information about you guys?
Yeah. Thanks again, Mike. Really appreciate that. And yeah, best place to just come and connect with us is Instagram, just at Chris and Eric Martinez, or go check out our website, dynamicfitpros.com. Again, we have a great training on there for health and fitness coaches that you'll find a lot of value there. And then, check out our podcast. Mike's been on it. It's called the Dynamic Lifestyle Podcast.
Awesome. Yeah. And I've seen your programs and all your stuff, and it's really good. I like it. It's
Thank you.
Practical and useful without being sleazy, which is a high compliment.
Appreciate that. Likewise.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. And we'll talk to you guys very soon.
All right. See you guys.
Mike.
Thanks.
Thanks so much. Bye.
All right, I know that was a long interview, but there was a lot of nuggets in there. So many nuggets, and you probably got to watch that again. All right, so now that you guys got those nuggets on how to be a better coach, if you're looking to build a six-figure business as a health and fitness professional, watch this video right here. We give you guys 6 new ways you guys can build a six-figure business going forward.